this birthday party came and I just felt like a complete loser. We got drunk and went off in the car. We did a bunch of illegal stuff. If you wanted people to be interested in you, you had to be interested in them first.
Some people on here have been talking about adult loneliness. This hits home for me big time. See, in 2018, my wife tried to throw a birthday party for me. She could not get one single person to show up, not one person. One of the saddest days of my life. So, yeah, do you maybe just want to run us through that a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. So we were living off the grid at the time in the mountains. And so we isolated ourselves a little bit geographically. And we'd had quite a few friends, but they had moved away, moved on. And I was working from home, and all my employees were remote, they were overseas. So I just had gotten isolated and I stopped going into town that much. And I thought I was this lone wolf. I thought it was cool that I didn't need friends and all this stuff. And I had this manliness thing. I'm this independent guy. I'm living off the grid. And then this birthday party came and I just felt like a complete loser. We could not get a single person to come to this thing. And I believe it was my 40th even. And I think it was a significant birthday. And it was just really sad. It was incredibly depressing. And I realized that I had worn this cloak of I'm an introvert. I don't like going up to strangers. And then I realized that I was using that as an excuse just to not talk to people and to be weird and off by myself. So I decided right then that I had to fix this. I liked being around people. I liked having friends. I liked having parties. And we just hadn't done it in so long that I looked at it hard and I realized that I had a lot of friends, but I never called them. I never went to see them. Why would they come to see me? And so I just started, it started off with reaching out to the people that I already knew. And I would have a funny memory of, oh man, remember that time in college when we got drunk and went off in the car? We did a bunch of illegal stuff. And so I would text those people, say, do you remember that? I can't believe we did that. And do that with high school friends. And that just led to some cool conversations, some late night calls and laughing. And then I realized I wanted to see these people more. And so I just started traveling. I would go specifically to see one person. I would fly to them or I would drive to them. And I realized I wanted those relationships. I wanted to maintain them. If I was going to have them, I had to make it happen. Again, make it happen, right? They weren't going to volunteer to come to me. They weren't going to say, hey, let's have a reunion. So I just started putting together these little reunions. I started getting my old college buddies. We flew down to Austin, Texas a couple years ago, and we just did one night. Just did one night, and we stayed up till the dawn talking and laughing and creating a complete ruckus in this hotel. But it was one of the most cathartic things I've ever done. And so reaching out to old friends. And then I realized I wanted new friends too, because I was living in these locations. And so I realized that I was a terrible listener and I hated small talk because it was always the same questions. There's always the same answers. What do you do? Where do you live? And everybody kind of pretends, oh, that's interesting. And then you wander off and yeah, say, I'm going to go get a beer and go to the bathroom. And then you get into another one. That's the exact same conversation, right? And so I started studying on this and realized that if you wanted people to be interested in you, you had to be interested in them first. And so I just started asking questions and I would ask people, I would still ask them, what do you do? But then I would follow it up, how did you get into that? And then I would go backwards in their history. I would say, okay, did you study that in college? And that would spark a conversation about college because almost nobody does what they studied in college, right? So you dig into the college life and then we'd peel it back even further and say, what did you want to be when you were growing up? And then you'd really get into their hopes and dreams. And you'd get this history of them, of where they lived and what they wanted to do with their lives and everything. And I would just sit there and listen and I would let go of any notion of them asking about me. And I would stop trying to get to my part, right? That's what so many of us do is we're not really listening, we're waiting to talk. And so what would happen is just active listening, like you're doing right now, Gareth. Your eyes are bright, you're nodding, you're smiling, like you're clearly listening to me. That's what I started doing with people. And I noticed instantly that people liked me more, for one, and that they wanted to hang out more. And so eventually they would ask about me and I would get to tell my stories. Some of them didn't. Some of them were just completely self-involved. And I just let those people go and never contacted them again. I didn't have really any interest in hanging out with people like that. But the vast majority of people had, so first of all, if you really dug into them, they had very interesting lives and they did really interesting things. And so then we'd eventually get into their hobbies. Well, what do you do for fun? What are you excited about? What are you really looking forward to these days? And it was usually something to do with a hobby. Maybe it was river rafting or motorcycle riding or camping somewhere or a backpacking trip. And then the natural progression was like, hey, I'm interested in that stuff. We should, maybe I'm already doing it. We should do that together. Or, hey, if you get an extra spot in your trip, I'd be interested in going. And I would just start getting invited to all this stuff. And before I knew it, I had 4 or 5 trips a year with people that I had just met. And I was forging really close friendships with a lot of these people. I got really close to most of the people I hang out with, I've only met in the last 3 or 4 years. One of them's a business partner now, and other people I'll go to the middle of the wilderness in Utah with for 4 days. And then these other guys were going on a whitewater rafting trip for 4 days. And so I just opened myself up, started listening more, asking interesting questions, let go of trying to impress people or trying to tell my story all the time. And it's really enriched my life. I have some tremendous friendships. I feel like if I was in a pickle or if I was in a bad spot, I'd have 20 people I could call.